It's Ben and myself, Ben Zaneti. He's the CEO of Anima Project and has a lot of experience in, I forgot. What did you write to me?
System information.
Good. Okay. And since I would be too embarrassed to present myself, then I'll embarrass myself further and tell you why child abuse, and especially CSA, is the mission of my life. So my parents were Holocaust survivors. My mother, they were both child survivors. My mother, my parents. Until now, you heard? Okay, good. My mother was around 11 and a half when her family and herself were deported from Slovakia to Auschwitz. Before they got to Auschwitz, they were 3 days in Krakow Plaszow concentration camp, and the women and men were separated. Children were left with the mothers. She was very much attached to her father, and but he was a rabbi. She came from an ultra-Orthodox family, and what happened was this 11 and a half years old, blonde hair, green eyes, who hasn't started developed physically, was very much attractive for a German soldier. And so he gently molested her. But for that, she was given a piece of bread to go to the fence and give to her father. And this was only 3 days. And I heard it only, I have been in this field, I think, 40 years. And I've heard it only on 2005, I think, 2 years before she died, when she already had cancer. And we went to, she asked me to go with her to see where her parents last breathed. And this was the crematorium in Auschwitz. So I embarrassed myself enough. Okay. The rest about me you can read on internet. The academic, which is less important, I think. Okay, so what we try here to do is we try to develop an artificial intelligence system to detect sexual abuse through self-figure drawing. What is the rationale for doing that? Because we know that artificial intelligence is used for in the health system. So the first is that we know that the prevalence, at least in Israel, 2016, by the way, not 14, 2016, the prevalence of CSA is 18.6% children reported that they were abused sexually under the age of 17. Half of them, by the way, were severely abused, 46%. The rate of CSA victims of disclosure is less than 10%, because disclosure is to family members and not just reporting to formal authorities. So less are reported to authorities. We know that, we found out that the more severe the abuse, the less willingness children are to disclose to anyone, or of course report. The more severe the abuse then, and if it continues, then the more severe will be the consequences for lifetime. And this is in the micro level. But when we look, as Shir said, the macro level, then there is extensive social and economic toll. And we know that we endanger the next generation if we don't take care of that. So most of these children, we do not detect. What are the current measures? What?
I think if they turn off the lights a little bit, it's easier to read because it's light.
okay, and will help people to sleep, and nobody will see them. But that's okay because I need you awake for the closure. Okay. So if we look at the current measures, and we heard yesterday from Dr. Lang, medical forensic examination is one of it, that to prove that, to detect whether the child was sexually abused or not, but most children do not even are not referred to medical examinations, and if we in order to find forensic evidence for that, they need to be referred immediately, almost 2 days, no more than 2 days, to that examination, which most of them do not. We have therapists or practitioners' reports. Some of the reports are not reliable for opening criminal or judicial procedures. For example, the drawings. We can understand the hidden messages within the drawings, but the judicial system or the other enforcement do not accept it. Child testimony. We heard yesterday, Bob said it. Most children are not believed. So it doesn't help if a child said the father did, as Elfred said, silly things to me, or please, please, mother, come. I don't like how he bathed me. And she says, that's how he does it. Nobody believes it. Okay, child investigation. Yesterday, we saw what the vice CEO of the Ministry of Welfare showed about the protocol. Say the truth, tell us the truth, 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 truth. Just by Dave lied here all the time, saying that he's honest and say the truth, right, Dave? He left.
No, not here.
Oh, okay. Okay, but just saying, tell me the truth, means I expect you to lie. That's it. Okay, so why should a child who doesn't even know exactly whether or not it occurred, what should he say? Nothing. Okay. And we have psychological tests. Psychological tests actually do not examine whether or not the child was sexually abused. They do examine the severity of symptoms. So actually, we have no tools for detection if a child was sexually abused. We think that by developing this system, we will be able to detect as early as we can, if we will do it within educational systems, for example, at least once a year in every class. We also, if we will detect more children who were sexually victimized, then it's a good possibility that we will detect the perpetrators as well. And eventually, I hope, something will happen with the prevalence. It will be reduced. The secondary prevention is it can be an assessment tool for therapists within the therapeutic settings, and also eventually probably will become collaborating evidence at the criminal or judicial procedures. And for treatment, we know already that art and drawing first encourages verbalization. So it will help us to therapists. Since Dave talked about the assumptions already without talking about self-figure drawing, I won't go through that and move to what we need in the self-figure drawing. Self-figure drawing, unlike what Sam spoke about, draw a figure, a human figure, self-figure drawing is very, very private. It's like very direct. You have to draw yourself. It's not like draw a human figure and then I can choose. So what we need to know, the variables that we need to know the age of the drawer, because we need to compare between the biological age and the graphic developmental stage. We need to know the education because we already know we have evidence that education level, the higher the education level, the better the quality of drawing. We need to know the culture and ethnicity because it might have influence. And of course, we need to know the gender because we need to look at the drawing and say and understand whether this girl drew a boy or vice versa. In 1999, and then other studies that we did, we found 4 indicators within self-figure drawing. The only instruction is draw yourself with no more instructions. Whatever question where the drawer asks, the answer is as you want. So we found these 4 indicators. The eyes, they should be shaded, hollow, dots, or omitted. Face line, double chin or double cheek, hollowed or shaded. Hands or arms clinging or cut off, detached or omitted. And the genitals shaded, blocked, or detached or omitted. No, okay. Here are some just few you can see. The double emphasized shadowed chin, the emphasized shadowed eyes, the detachment of the arms, actually no hands, and disconnected in many places the lower body from the upper body. Here again, you can see another one. Okay, and 7 years old. All of them were sexually abused. So we can see here the detachment of the arms, the hollowed eyes, and this shadowed over the genitals. Okay, and this is another one. I won't go to that.
So Rachel, I put your seat warm. So before I dive into the technology, just want to put a correlation between me and Rachel. So I met Rachel roughly 18 months ago. I was presenting her our project that we did on developmental and emotional. 2 years ago, we started a project on developmental and emotional in children by drawings. We work with IBM Watson, and we established 96% of accuracy in identifying objects in a drawing. Then we looked up for a figure that can help us in identify children's drawings, and we met Rachel. Since then, I have to say that it's an honor, and every day is interesting, and you know, we're learning so much. So that's true. Okay, so coming back to the technology, so basically, what is an AI? We have 2 basics of AI. We have the AI machine learning, and if we look, we have the AI of neuron, like our brain, that can call deep learning. So if we look at the AI, for example, if it's IBM, someone knows IBM here, IBM Watson? Okay, awesome. So IBM started with Deep Blue. Deep Blue was started on teaching the system how to beat the chess player Kasparov, if you remember. And it basically beat Kasparov. But the problem is that they needed to teach the system how to beat him. That means that there was a set of rules, a code that was written in order to teach the system the moves. Now the deep learning is something different. That means that the system can identify, that can learn by itself, like our brain. For example, if someone knows the game Go, there's no, deep mind, for example, there's no rules or something like that. That's why deep learning is what we are doing now. Yeah, opposite. Okay, so what have we done? We took basically a self-figure drawing, and we started learn about them to see if the system can identify the drawings like a human brain. Then we took only the abused and non-abused, and we taught the system how to find out which children were abused and which children was not abused. Now, we started with the machine learning instead of the deep learning, as I mentioned before, and we taught the system how to recognize the indicators that Rachel has taught us. So there are 4 indicators, as Rachel has mentioned, and we taught the system how to recognize those. I think I'm always opposite. I don't know. Yeah? Yeah? Okay, so I'm okay. So we taught the system, as I said, machine learning, and then we move on to the deep learning. What happened with the deep learning is that we established better result, and we can see it here. For example, we started with the machine learning, and over there we got not that great result, and on the deep learning, we got a result of 83% in identifying the users that have been sexually abused, okay? Now, we did those tests on 1,500 users, okay? So after that, we taught the system, we wanted to see from the system if we can identify users that has not been sexually abused, and we got to more than 80% of accuracy. Now, Rachel in the university has done a research with 450 experts and taught them the indicators in order to see if they can identify children who have been sexually abused or not been sexually abused. The results were here. They can find out at 80%, more than 80% users that have been sexually abused, but users that have not been sexually abused, only 57%. And this is the big difference that I want to show you with the technology. If we look at the technology, as I mentioned before, it is 83%. Now, after those experts that were taught about the indicators, after a few months, they forgot about what they taught. And what happened is that they were lower on the percentage of the accuracy to 67, 76. I don't remember, Rachel, you can better say about that. But the more that we teach the system, okay, that is what I'm meaning with deep learning. The more that we teach her, the better result that we can achieve. Basically, we want to achieve in the next 18 months, 95% of accuracy in identifying children who have been sexually abused. And that is why we need the help of collecting the data. Now, I just want to say that the system is not replacement of professional, but the opposite. It's supposed to see if children in kindergarten, schools, etc. are being sexually abused, and to raise a flag to the experts saying, listen, there is a problem, and we think that you need to check it out. So what is our next steps? So as I mentioned, our test was done on all the population. We didn't took ages by, let's say, 8, 10, 10, 12, 12, 14. And in order to be more accuracy, we want to do it by dividing the ages. And we want to train the system accordingly to the ages and the culture of the children. So to summarize what we're going to do in the next 18 months, we need to collect as much as data as you can in order to get to a high percentage of accuracy. And we want to collect data from different kind of areas and improve our system, not just on child sexual abuse, but on abuse in central. So, thank you. Try to do it short.
Okay, so for that, project, what we did is, still have 5 minutes, for that project, we established some kind of consortium, and so I wrote to Elspeth from Australia, and to Bob in United States, and Sam and Kruti. And we started, and to Alias in Greece, the professor who unfortunately couldn't come. Jane, who is here, from Thailand. Actually, we started to collect data, me and Jane, in Thailand. And of course from Israel, and we are going to have, with the Ministry of Welfare, to collect data and start collecting it from out of boarding schools and other services and institutions. So we will know the history of children. And also we got approval from the Ministry of Education to collect data. And and actually When I was in South Africa, I suggested that long before, before we started, I suggested it to Professor Linda Blackland, and to collect data, and we thought of doing it, and one of her students, PhD students, right? Master students, yeah, she collected and did something with it, right? Okay, so anyone who is willing, because it's not, we cannot use data that already is existed in the Ministry of, in Sheffield, for example, in the Ministry of Education, because they were asked to draw a person, and draw yourself is something different. So we need to be very accurate in what we ask and the way we collect the data. So anyone who is willing to collaborate on that, we need, you understand, thousands of drawings in order to get the results, the accuracy that we look for. So you are invited. Atri is working very hard for me on that. Kruti is going to work very hard for me on that. Sam already is working on that. And, and anyone here? Yes.
Question about culture in our globalised world where people whiz about the place and live in different countries from other countries of origin. So, how are you defining culture precisely?
Yeah, that's a problem. Yes. Well, what?
Another problem is
Yeah,
false alarms.
I forgot that we also collect data with Kaplan Hospital, and we are going to collaborate with Tal in the psychiatric hospital in Beersheba. Well, it's actually a methodological problem. Okay? First, it's not going to be representative, but we hope, because otherwise each one who collects data within your country, you will have to do a representative sample, which is it costs a lot, and we won't be able to do. But if we collect sometimes the amount of the sample can cover up for some of this. So if we will have from different continents, and within each continent several different countries, hopefully we will be able to overcome that this limitation. That's it.
Just a comment on that. So just a comment on that. So that's really interesting, because in terms of cultures, and if you're talking about automatic system, it will be really interesting to see if there is differences between the culture of different countries, and if there is relationship between different countries. So that is something that we can do by a push of a button. We can take thousands of drawings, exactly. We already have them labeled. So every test that we want to do after that will be so much easy. So for example, as Rachel said, we have mass data. Then we will see that we can recognize in 90% children who have been sexually abused. Now we want to go layer by layer and see which are them correlated to other countries. For example, if we look at Europe, or if we look at Australia, is there any similar to United States, or in Israel to United States, etc. So this is something that's going to be worldwide and really interesting in terms of results, research, etc.
Okay, not about that, but another note that I forgot to say is that you saw that the system did recognize or detected 70 something, 70. No, not in the sexual abuse, the non-sexual abuse. Yeah, 76. Now, this came from general population. We actually did not know whether or not they had this history. So it might be that actually the system did detect accuracy, those who were abused and those who were not.
What about the false alarms? It probably.
But that's what
we can- we
Ben spoke about.
unfortunately
We
might
are
find
not,
something
this
which is-
is not instead of practitioners. It's not going to replace them. It's going to be the alarm, no, the red flag, that now a practitioner should approach that child and find out.
And if I'm
Yeah,
not mistaken,
and
1 in 5.
something else, the next step, if we will succeed in that, what we want to do is we will be able to identify or detect other forms of abuse, like physical abuse, neglect. I think we will be able to move to other things like learning difficulties and other things according to